Thank you, Brother Chair. Tonight is a bit different for me. Since this campaign started, I've been speaking outside my home place. So tonight I'm here at home speaking to my own people. Yes. But before we get the business going, I want to recognize among us some persons who I see. I'm sure they come from the International Observers Mission, who is here in Guyana to observe our elections, and we welcome them to Guyana, and more so, we welcome them to our beautiful community in Seaville. Sisters and brothers, these elections have been described by social and political commentators, both in Guyana and out of Guyana, as the mother of all elections. And this is not because they want to find a nice word to describe these elections. This is so for some serious objective reasons. Every election has a context. And in 2015, when we came to you, the context was to remove the PPP from our backs. The context was to put an end to the discrimination, the economic apartheid that was being practiced by the PPP regime. The context was to put an end to the phantom killing. The context was to put an end to the imposition on the working people. And that was the context in which we came to you and we asked for your vote. And you give us your vote. And we succeed in removing the PPP from our backs. It was a major political achievement. These elections, sisters and brothers, is a different context. In 2015, the country was bankrupt. We had to deal with re-establishing the economic fundamentals of the country and moving the country and the economy from a criminal enterprise into one for sustainable and sound economic performance. And we have rebuilt the economy. We have corrected a lot of the wrongs that was being done by the PPP. This context, sisters and brothers, is different. These elections are being fought at a point in time when our country is now an oil and gas producing country. And all the journals that deal with oil and gas, if you read them, they are saying that Guyana, in a few short years, will be producing more barrels of oil per day than the population. We have a population of under 800,000. And the experts in this business is telling us and telling the world that in few short years, on a daily basis, we will be producing more oil than the population. This, sisters and brothers, is a transformative situation. And it is for these reasons that these elections are considered the mother of all elections. Because it opens for the first time in the history of this country, from slavery to the present day, no domestic government have had at its disposal the economic means to transform this country. And you know that sugar was king, and all the inequalities and the problems, the economic and structural divisions came about as a result of sugar. Sugar with slavery and indenture shaped our country. And you know that the African community, over 250 years of slavery, we worked and we got not a cent from the colonial state, not a cent from any Guyanese state. And sisters and brothers, these oil reserves and these oil resources opened up for the first time in the history of this country a chance for a government to use oil resources to unite the country and to correct historical injustices among the population. And it's for this reason, sisters and brothers, that these elections are so critical. It is true that whoever wins these elections would be in power for quite a long time. But more important, sisters and brothers, the elections offer us a chance to transform this country in a peaceful and a constructive way where we could have social cohesion and togetherness. Anyone looking at the Guyanese economy as it stands today, and I have been making this point over and over, and they haven't challenged me. At present, Africans and Amerindians only control together. The African stakes and the Amerindian stakes in the economy is 10%. It therefore means that 90% of the economy is outside our hands. It is controlled either by Indians, Portuguese, and now we have the Chinese. This is a structural injustice, and a lot of this happened historically, but it got worse under the 23 years of the PPP, deliberate policy of economic apartheid, in which they set out systematically to impoverish African communities because they vote for the PNC and because they vote for the AFC, the PMU, AFC, and so forth. So it was deliberate policy that impoverished us. And today, sisters and brothers, you remember that the government is the largest spender of funds in these economies. Annually, hundreds of billions of Guyana dollars are spent annually. And in the 23 years of the PPP, what they did, they inherited a procurement legislation from the Hoyt regime under the PNC time, which made it easier for the average citizen to access government contracts. And they now impose a law upon us that excludes us. You remember when they get in 1992, in Guyana we had little capacity to build roads. The first thing the PPP did, they went to Trinidad, recruit their Indian friends, and the first contractors that began to build roads in Guyana was Indian Trinidadians working with local Indians. And 3 years after that, you don't see Trinidadians. They have empowered their own people and their friends. And a lot of the road contracts are done by non-African people, non-Amerindian people. As I told you, in any situation where a government for 23 years spend hundreds of millions of dollars in a discriminatory way, the consequence of that is the enrichment of a selective few on a particular community and the impoverishment of other communities. An African impoverishment today, as we speak to you, where we control less than 7% of the economy, is a legacy of the PPP's spitefulness, and we have to put an end to it. That's right! Yeah! Sisters and brothers, we are in a situation where no honest politician from here onwards, from this year, it is predicted that in the first year of oil, this very year, the Guyana gross national income would increase by 85%. You know, we are accustomed for years when the finance minister read the budget, he talk about a 3.45% increase and 4%. People have an 85% increase. A tremendous amount of money will be circulating and being had the exposure of government unprecedented in the history of this country. And as we prepare to vote, we prepare to get our comrade Granger and company back into office, which is critical. Because who control the government make the critical decisions as to how resources will be allocated.
That's right, that's right.
And we want to make it extremely clear to everyone that we have suffered long enough.
That's right.
And we have bear our chief long enough. And we don't want no trickle-down economics. We want transformative economics to lift these communities out of poverty. And we want to see on a gradual and systematic basis, after the 5 years of oil, African economy moved about 25 or 30% of the national stakes. With nothing less will satisfy us. So sisters and brothers, you are engaged in these elections not only to put us in power who are politicians. You know, I am old enough to speak some truths to you, regardless of the consequences. In 2015, we came to you, we mobilized you to vote for us. And when we went into government, we found a lot of problems and difficulties, a lot of promises that we made. We could not fulfill it. But sisters and brothers, as a member of the WPA leadership and a member of the APMU, AFC leadership, I say to you that we made a big mistake by not coming back to the street corners, by not mobilizing you and to re-establish a social, economic, and political contract with you. Politicians have to be accountable to the people. We cannot come to you and ask you to support us. And then when we go into power and we have difficult situations, we don't bring you back. We don't work with you so that you could understand. And that is one of the reasons why we are experiencing some pushback in our own constituency among our people. Some people who say they don't want to vote, but we will deal with that later. Sisters and brothers, I am not here to tell you that our government has been a perfect government. No government in the world is perfect. No government is capable of delivering everything it promised in one term. And I want you to understand the PPP propaganda. The press in this country, the Stabroek News and the Kaishore News and the Guyana Times are owned by persons who have hostile intentions to us. And they use their newspapers to shape our thinking. And we have not developed enough counter newspapers so that you could hear our own story our own way. And a lot of our constituents' thinking is shaped by Stabroek News and Kaishore News. And if you were to follow them, you will believe that oil and gas is the worst thing that could have happened to Guyana. But sisters and brothers, why they're preaching a certain kind of propaganda? It's because they recognize that this oil and gas now came to light under the APMU, AFC government and Comrade Granger. And they know that that oil revenue will be used to transform the economy in a just and proper way. And that is why they are pushing all of the negatives. I am not here to tell you that ExxonMobil is the angels. Those international monopolies, they're not the angels. They're here to make money. But we have had to make hard strategic decisions as to how to deal with the potentials of oil. And I'm saying to you, sisters and brothers, don't be fooled. Regardless of what is the state of the contracts that we signed with ExxonMobil, the reality is Guyana government and the Guyanese nation will have unprecedented wealth that we have never had in the history of this country. Yeah! And this is what is important for starters. This is important for starters because based upon our oil and gas reserves, we will be able to enter into other agreements and learn from our mistakes. We will be able to do better. This is fourth rung. This is fourth rung. But we need the money. We need the money because our country have been underdeveloped for too long. Sisters and brothers, I want to address another point because this is important. The PPP have been spreading propaganda that we're going to rig these elections, and they want international observers to be all wrong. But the truth of the matter, sisters and brothers, the biggest riggers of elections post 1992 is the PPP. And I want to say this to the international observers. If you understand the demographics of the country, and if you understand the kind of rigging that we had to deal with and still have to deal with, the African community in large is concentrated in the centers of the place, high population centers. And those are the places that are most policed by the international observers mission. But the Indian population is more widely spread in remote areas. And it's in those remote areas where the international observers don't go, that is where they rob us. That is where the rigging takes place. So by the time the votes come to Chicom, they're already rigged. Yeah. So why the international observers are watching in Georgetown and Linden and in New Amsterdam, they're not watching in the remote areas where the PPP used to rig, but they had state power at that time. Sisters and brothers, this is the first elections that the PPP Jagdi-owned company will be engaged in without state power. And they know that they're not in a similar situation than they were before. And that is why they're fighting like hell to have the elections on the old voter list. Because they, over the last 23 years in the election rigging, have synchronized the election machinery with that old voter list. And that is why we were trying to have a new voter list. But the courts rule, and we respect the court. So we have to go to the polls with a ridiculous list, which have as much as 600,000 possible voters, when in fact the country will probably only have about 300 and something voters. But it is important that we understand what they want. They have a machinery that is specialized on the old list. That is where the rigging, that is where the rigging will be done. But we are not in power, and we're going to watch them, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that they can't do what they used to do when they were in power. Another issue that is important for us, they are quietly trying to suggest that these elections somehow or the other will be influenced by the international community in favor of the APMU because you know the foreign people probably like the Granger administration and don't like the PPP. The PPP is spreading that propaganda because they want to get us complacent. They want us to believe that we don't have to vote, that the thing is already fixed, and that Granger and the APMU plus AFC is already the winners. But I'm here to tell you tonight, don't fall for that. No foreign government will determine what happened on March 2 and March 3. The hands of the Granger administration, the hands of our president and his cabinet lies in our hands. It is we who have to decide whether they will be re-elected or not. It would not be the task of any foreign government, whether it's the British, American, Canadian, the EU or what. This is a domestic matter. And we want you to understand that every vote counts. Elections have, sisters and brothers, elections have winners and losers. And I'm going to tell you, on March 3rd, whether you like it or not, there will be whipping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And I don't want the whipping and wailing to be on our side. The whipping and wailing will be in Freedom House. So, sisters and brothers, we have a job to do. We are winning the battle of the campaigns. Our major rallies and the major public meetings have been bringing out thousands of our people. They believe that because in the local government elections, which was a low-key elections, where a lot of resource and political energies weren't expelled, they won handsomely. And they convinced themselves that the APMU, AFC supporters are so disgusted with the government that they wouldn't respond in the national elections. And that is why they work with Chandra Das and they spring that nastiness upon us. And they give us a body blow. But as a good boxer, we wobble, but we didn't fall. And we get up back. Yeah! We didn't fall, we wobble. And we began to fight back. We began to fight back. And we fight back in a dignified way. We use the courts, which supposed to be the correct place when you have a dispute as to whether a constitutional measure is X or Y. The president didn't declare martial law. We went to the courts and we lost in the fourth round. We go in the second round and we won. They took us to the Caribbean court and they win. And we accept it. And the elections is on the way. But sisters and brothers, they thought they could have forced us to early elections in which they were prepared and we were not prepared. But as a good boxer, we bob, we weave, we jab, we hook, we cross. And now we're preparing for the final knockout. Yeah! Sisters and brothers, we are up against the Siamese twins. Bharat and Ali, they're Siamese twins, they are joined together. They can't be separated easily. But Dr. David Granger and his medical staff on March 2nd will separate them. We will go the precise medical political operation and we will separate them and we will be careful, we are kind people. Our chief doctor, Comrade Granger, will ensure that in this operation we don't kill the patient. So sisters and brothers, we want them to be alive. We want them to be alive so that they could take the medicine that we're going to give them after March 3rd. So we're going to separate the Siamese twins. And we're going to make them back normal people. So sisters and brothers, we have a lot of business to do. Now, sisters and brothers, as I told you, we are here in the APMU territory. Comrades, before you have hinted to the importance of this community, we have liberated this community from the swamps, an environment in which even rice refused to grow. And we liberate it now. It is the home for thousands of families. In political terms, you remember in '92 when they came to power, they tried to steal Sophia from us. They used Philomena Sahai and their thugs to try to put in force the PPP rule. And we pushed back and we kicked them out. And we liberated Sophia. And Sophia is politically liberated territory for the APMU plus AFC. We are standing on sacred ground politically. And this community, sisters and brothers, was extremely important in our victory in 2015. And I want to say to you, sisters and brothers, we have to do much more than we did in 2015. We want turnout in the 90s because these elections are critical, every vote counts. And in the stronghold of the APMU AFC, we have to make up for areas where we may lose some votes. So you have additional work to do. You have to, sisters and brothers, identify among you the comrades who are still yet undecided. You see, in my assessment, I am old enough to know that we probably mobilize over 90% of the historic APMU, AFC constituencies. Over 90% of our comrades are ready to go. But sisters and brothers, there's probably a 10 or 8% who have not yet made up their minds. And that is critical, sisters and brothers. I'm going to show you why in a few minutes. And you have the duty to deal with that. Let me try to use two simple analogies. If you want to buy a house, a property, and that property is $25 million, and on the day of purchase you only have $20 million, you can't close the deal because you short $5 million. Let us now translate that in terms of election politics. Let us say, for the sake of argument, that the APMU need 200,000 votes in order to get to the 51% and over. If we have 195,000 votes, we have not reached the 51. So to get to that 51, we have to get the additional votes. And as I see, I'm old enough to know that those 10% or 8% who are not undecided, they pose a danger to us. We have to get them to change their minds, and very quickly, because every vote counts. We don't want to be short. We want to get over the 51% with comfort. We don't want to face no one-seat majority. We want an effective majority. Therefore, sisters and brothers, we have the task, those of us who have already been converted. The Christians have a way of saying the word is not for those who have already been saved. The word is for those who are yet to be saved. Yeah! The thousands that attend our rallies and raise our flags and demonstrate their commitment to our leader and our coalition. We are glad, we are happy, we are energized. But sisters and brothers, we are also concerned about that 8 or 10% of our comrades who have not yet made their minds up, and we have to get to them. We have to get to them. And I want to say to you, I have heard a lot of people saying that, you know, I didn't listen too much to PPP propaganda, you are stupid. The government can't do everything in 4 years. What's wrong with that? That is not the way, sisters and brothers, we're going to lose them. I am old enough to tell you that if a man is hungry, you could tell him he is not hungry, but biology dominates. He feels the wind. He feels the drop in his blood sugar, and he or she knows that they're hungry. And nothing you tell them could change that except you promise them some food that will give them some hope. So, sisters and brothers, there must be something that we did wrong. That persons who fought for us in 2015, even though the numbers are small, are asking why should they vote for us today. We must have done something wrong. And whatever it is, I am not here to discuss that in any detail, but just to point out that whatever it is, we must accept political responsibility. We must apologize for our government. We must apologize to the public sector workers, which this government have failed to strike a collective bargaining with them. Because many of them feel aggrieved, because the PPP deprived them of the right of collective bargaining, which is important to workers. Because collective bargaining determines the workers, the value of workers' labor power. And any good union and any clever worker knows that through collective bargaining, they stand a better chance to have higher wages. We have done a beautiful job of increasing public service in minimum wage from 35 to about 75%. But the point of grievance is that the workers and Patrick Yard and company is saying that we are treating them like the PPP, imposing increases upon them and not allowing collective bargaining process. We say the fire on the behalf of the Great Administration, our great coalition. We say to Patrick Yard and the Public Service Union, we're sorry. But we promise to correct it as soon as we get into power, because we will have the resources to do it. So sisters and brothers, if you see a Rasta comrade who is saying, I am voting because they legalize the ganja, don't tell them that they're stupid because you're going to hit yourself against a concrete wall. Tell them as soon as we get into office, we're going to legalize the thing. That is the thing where we have to go. If we reach a young person who have been complaining that they have not been getting good job opportunities, we must not tell them it's not so, because if they were been applying for work and they didn't get work, they know their reality. And you telling them it is not so, it's a waste of time. We must tell them with all the money, you're going to get work very soon. So we have to be politically nimble in these critical hours. In these critical hours, we have to be politically nimble and smart. Don't hit our head against the wall by telling our discontented supporters that they know the reality. Tell them, yes, we understand, but we're going to fix it. Because the truth of the matter is, sisters and brothers, no politician, no government, our government or any other government, could stand to Guyanese people now that we are oil and gas producing country and say there is not enough money to deal with the economic and social constraints that face the working people and their families. No politician could tell you that. The problem we will have in a few months and a few years, we will have more money than we could spend. And the big challenge is to make sure that a lot of those money don't go into people's private pockets. So we need an honest government. We need people who we could trust. We will have more money than we could handle. That is the reality. So there are going to be no excuses. Comrade Granger and company can't tell us that they can't double our wages. They can't tell us that they can't double the old age pension. They can't tell us that they can't create economic hubs for employment of our young people. The money will be there. Yeah! So sisters and brothers, we are in a new situation. In 2015, we had to bind our belly. And we had to make a lot of sacrifices. We are at the point where that's supposed to end and end very soon. Guyana have committed to the United Nations measure to end poverty by 2030. The United Nations has mandated all member states to try to deal with the question of poverty, to wipe poverty out of their country by 2020. As I speak to you with the kind of volume of oil money, we could knock poverty out in Guyana in the first 5 years. By 2025. There should be no poor Guyanese. In 5 years, there should be no young person without work. In 5 years, there should be no woman without work. And sisters and brothers, I'm going to touch on a very important matter here. In the 23 years of the PPP, they have pauperized us to the extent that if you go any evening and see the women who is going and do security work, risking their lives in order to find money to feed their family, it's African women. If you check the buses, you will see 100 African women and probably 2 Indian or 1 Amerindian. They have reduced our women folk to a point that they have to come out to the houses, abandon their children, and to work for pittance. With oil, we're sending our women back. We're sending them away from those employments, and we're going to find 7 to 4 employments, paying better wages, better conditions, to love our women, to be home so that they could train their children and help us to fight this nastiness that the PPP have put upon us. So sisters and brothers, the money will be there. And as we fight to get Comrade Grange and company in office, we want to tell them, and we want the whole world to know that this time is not like long time. The last time when we vote you in, you didn't have the means, and we had to bear with chief. This time, I yar you, you yar me. I help you, you help me. And we want our comrades to know the cabinet that nothing for nothing, we're going to put you back. But we're coming for a pound of flesh, and we want a handsome plum. So this election, sisters and brothers, is not only about we the politicians. It is about you and your future. It is about you and your future. You will remember, sisters and brothers, that when they came to power, one of their hallmarks, apart from worsening the racial situation based upon the economic apartheid, they used phantom killers, state-sponsored killers, to roam the African communities and to shoot our young men down like dogs. When you pick up the newspapers, 4 and 5 persons being shot down, and they have rained upon the African community oppression that was only par with slavery. Never in our modern history as African community, we were at the point where they corrupt even our own in the police force and use African police to kill African sons and daughters. They unleashed their brutality upon us. But we throw that off in 2015. And we want the local observers to know that in these elections, we are not simply fighting for the sake of political power. We are fighting to save a nation. We are fighting to make sure that the oil industry and the tremendous wealth does not divide the country and create worse situation than what we have. We want all to unite us, to help us move into as a prosperous and a modern country, a model for social cohesion and race relations, proper race relations and tolerance. We want an economic readjustment of the economy, where African interests, Amerindian interests, Portuguese, Indians, and Chinese interests reach a point of parity. And this is why these elections are important to us. Sisters and brothers, I've been given a simple formula which I'm going to share with you. And I want the international observers to hear. Because you're not only here to come and see how we vote, you also know the things that motivate us to act in the way in which we act. As I said to you, the African and the Amerindian stakes in the economy is 10%. And in real terms, the African state is 7%. 3% of the 10 is Amerindians. The Indian stakes in the economy, the Indians and the Portuguese, is either 40 or 60, which one I'm not too sure. But let us make for simple calculation. Let us say, for the sake of the discussion, we know that the African stakes is 7%. Let us say the Indian stakes is 40%. And let us say that we're going to share the oil reserve money equally. We want to be fair. So let us say that the total oil revenue is 10. And we shared it half and half between the African community and the Indian community. So the first year, half of the money is 5. We give that 5 to the African community. 7 plus 5 is how much? 12. We get the next half to the Indian community. 40 plus 5 is how much? 45. And the next year, we give the 5 to the African community. 12 plus 5 is how much? 17. And we give another 5 to the Indian community. 45 plus 5 is how much? 50. We can never reach parity.
No.
Never reach parity in that economic model.
Never.
And African and Indians must be African and Amerindians must be clear. That model can't work. The children of Kofi and Aka, who have liberated this country from the swamps. We have made Guyana habitable before any indenture worker came. Our ancestors died in the hundreds of thousands. We have built every road in this country before the first indenture. We have built every canal, every estate. We have harmonized this environment 250 plus years with not a cent. Economic and social and historical justice must mean that there must be a correction of the African and the Amerindian community and generally the multiracial poor in the country. And this is why these elections are the mother of all elections for us local people. So sisters and brothers, I've had you for quite a while. I'm going to tie up. As I said before, elections have winners and losers. And we are not into this business of losing. Losing is too high risk.
That's right.
Losing is too high risk of business. But we can't win, sisters and brothers, simply because we say we want to win. We have to do the extra work. And we have a few more weeks. We already put our 1 foot, is already in the promised land. And we're going to march forward as we go on in the promised land of plenty. Just extra work. We have bared our chief like Banwari. We have bared our chief. And we only have 2 more mornings, comrades, only 2 mornings more. And we will be stupid people who are just on the hands of plenty to allow that to disappear from us simply because of complacency. Simply because we didn't come out and vote. We have to come out and vote, comrades. We have to come out and vote because the fate of our beloved leader, his cabinet, our great coalition lies in your hands. We will win these elections on your strength. And the more votes we get from our historic constituency, it is less we will depend from votes outside our constituency. And we want you to understand this. If you deliver us votes in Sophia, in other parts of Georgetown, Linden, Bartik, and so forth in the 90s, we will only have to get few votes from outside our constituency to win this thing. So we need, the sisters and brothers, the strategic, that you come out and you make sure that all your friends, your family, speak to everybody. Give them who want the massaging, as I told you, give them massage. Give them the promises that they want. This is no time to argue. If they say they hurt, yes, you hurt, but we're going to fix it. Okay? So sisters and brothers, in closing, I want to remind you that we have to deal with the Siamese twins on March 2nd. And we want to make sure when we separate them, they mustn't dead. We want them to be alive. We want to wave our flags in their face. We want to give them the dose of our medicines that we have prepared for them. So sisters and brothers, in closing, I want you to give your support to the doctor, the medical doctor, David Granger, and Roger Tanu, who will be his assistant in the operation theater. And I believe our comrade here in Sophia, the chair, maybe a nurse, will be performing that delicate operation. And we're going to bring them to Sophia. When we're done, we're going to bring them to Sophia. Because we want you to see we didn't kill them. You have been a good audience, sisters and brothers. Thank you and good night. Thank you. Forward ever! Forward ever! APMU, AFC and Granger must be their winners! On March 3rd, they must be weeping on the railing in Freedom House. Weeping on the railing in Freedom House. And we will be enjoying. We will be marching and singing